Good evening, everyone. It is November 25th. Going to talk about the gains Russia has made since the beginning of this year. I know throughout the year I've made map videos and I've talked about how Russia has made gains, and I want to kind of consolidate that into one kind of broad picture so you can see exactly what Russia has gained over the course of the 2024 year. So pay attention to basically the entire front here, but in particular, the big gains have been made from essentially Chasiv Yar down to Volodar. Obviously with the main push being towards Pokrovsk. That's been what I've talked about mostly this year. So as you can see, as we progress through time here, in the first month, you can kind of see very slow gains. Again, this is all very, very slow going, but you can see the front line moving slightly near Svetova, outside of Donetsk, and Bakhmut. Then it is in May when you start to see the salient forming heading towards Pokrovsk right in here. You see where Russia starts pushing hard in their late spring to summer offensive to try and take Pokrovsk. Now moving along, you can kind of see that it picks up a bit in that one specific area. But also, you start to see the salient forming up near Kupiansk as well. Now, you can't see the city, but Kupiansk sits right in here. That is the third region where Russia has been focusing. The first, obviously, being Pokrovsk, the second being near Volodar, the third being Kupiansk. And I'm kind of rolling up this Pokrovsk into Chasiv Yar because this is all one battlefield where they have moved forces back and forth in an attempt to try to find the weaknesses in the Ukrainian front lines. So moving on, you can see it picks up again very quickly in August into September, that move towards Pokrovsk. And then you see where the movement forward towards Pokrovsk finishes. And there's, as I've said before, this large defensive area where there's heavy Ukrainian defenses, trenches, and minefields. So once again, you see Russia spread out across the front line here to try to close this gap right here. So you see it spreading laterally from Pokrovsk, movements past Volodar, and that is where we are at today, or rather about a week ago. So again, you can see movement has been taking place, but it's not a ton of movement, and we can speed through this and show kind of exactly how this looked over the past year. So just once again, you can see across the front lines, Bakhmut to Chasiv Yar, Donetsk to Pokrovsk, Volodar, and then up near Svetova, which is heading towards Kupiansk. Now we're talking about a few hundred square kilometers of territory that Russia has taken in that time frame. But when you look at the totality of the battlefield, we're talking, again, very, very small areas in Ukraine relative, and I'm gonna have to zoom out again just so you can get the entire picture of Ukraine here, but relative to the size of Ukraine, which sits roughly like this. So again, not a ton of territory. I'm gonna include Crimea here. Terrible outline, but you get it. Not a lot of territory being taken relative to the entirety of Ukraine. And this is especially concerning for Russia because for the few hundreds of kilometers they have taken, they have lost some 330,000 troops since January. And that's not all deaths, that's total casualties, meaning wounded, captured, fled, or killed. So it does count those that could potentially return to the battlefield after having their wounds mended. Nonetheless, it is a significant amount of casualties that Russia is sustaining, and it doesn't look to be letting up, especially when you look in places like Kursk, where the Ukrainians went back on the offensive, and originally the salient that the Russians had formed here has now collapsed inwards on both sides, and the Ukrainians have once again taken the initiative here in Kursk, although I don't think it's going to be as rapid of advances as we've seen when this Kursk incursion first took place. Nonetheless, this territory is about 1/3 the size of the territory Russia took over the past year. So again, we're not talking about major gains made by either side at this point, but that always favors the defense. It always favors the defense to slow the movements of the offense, and Russia is on the offense, obviously in all places except for Kursk, but this Kursk incursion is more of a bargaining chip, a more offensive operation to play future defense with. But nonetheless, the remainder of the battlefield, especially in the regions of Pokrovsk, that is absolutely a defensive measure, as we see them trying to move to the flanks of Pokrovsk and take that city. But as I said, very, very slow going. And you can see over the past year, Russia has taken territory, but it's not a lot in the grand scheme of the entirety of Ukraine. And to have lost 330,000 soldiers to casualties is just staggering.